Hi, I'm Caroline Robertson from ActifHR, based out of Silverstone Innovation Centre. I've lived in Silverstone for 20-something years, 23 years. First moved into the village. I love the noise. How can you not? Just as you hear the testing, it's not so loud anymore, is it? But people moved into the village and went, it's loud here. And I'm like, you live in Silverstone. Anyway, I actually qualified as a lawyer, 1999, worked in law, hated litigation, hated the confrontation, hated the employment tribunal, but I love the HR and the employment law side. And ActifHR, we recruit, retain and release. We're not recruitment consultants, but it's all the early stages, retain, all about getting the best out of people. And obviously, I call it release. It's when you have to let people go sort of thing. Anyway, we deal mainly with high-tech, high-performance engineering businesses, sort of work alongside them. So from a change point of view, change is complex. It's difficult for people, you know, the fear of the job insecurity, the fear of what's it going to mean to my responsibilities and my roles, how's it going to impact the team, they're nervous, all of those sorts of things. And the key thing is, obviously, for leaders, and particularly in smaller businesses, leaders, it's about bringing people on, engaging people through that whole process. And quite often I go into businesses and I get there's a financial change needs to happen. Something's happened in the market. It's top down. This is how it's going to have to be. But I don't see the listening, the active engagement of those employees through the process. And as a result, people have habits that we've all got habits. They're quite hard to change. People are worried. They're nervous. So I'm trying to just do a very quick whistle-stop tour on some key pointers. Of course, change, I go in a lot sometimes for those choopy situations, the transfer. Those are the business changes, the service provision changes. Those are all the ones we tend to think about. Of course, reorganisation, scaling up, redundancy, even new projects, new customers, new management, new responsibilities. All of that is change. And I think a lot of business leaders don't actually think, even if it's a small change within the department, it might be within their skill set, but that team, it's how you engage them through that process. So I tend to have a bit of a 7-step process that I look at. And it's, for me, change is about leaders proactively planning what that change will be. I go into too many businesses where they don't have any proactive planning. They haven't thought the steps through. So, and then I'll touch quickly on a couple of HR and employment law considerations at the end. But from a 7-step process, this is really key for me. It's obvious, put people first. I always, from an HR point of view, my logo is where people matter. I've got to put people first. But people don't actually get how important that is. Everybody's different. We talked about neurodiversity. It's understanding people, how they react to change is really key. And it's about obviously bringing people on that journey. Proactive communication. I've gone into too many businesses where there's not proactive communications. It's almost like a fear factor. If we tell them, they might ask questions. Well, yes, you know, it's just get it out there. Let's be transparent. Work to a plan if you can. Now, I'm very conscious that there are lots of specialist change managers out there. They know a lot more about it than I do. I only know from the coalface of dealing with employees. And appreciate small businesses, you can't bring a specialist change manager in, but it is good, put a plan in place. There are lots of plans, there are lots of change management models out there. You probably know it's Lewin, and Lewin's less complicated. I think it's a 3-step process. Some are really complicated, ADKA and Kotter and all this. But if you choose one of them, choose one that puts people, from my side, prioritise people within that plan. And I often see the technology businesses, the engineering business, they love those spreadsheets, they love a plan, they love project managing a plan, but actually how do we communicate, how do we bring people on that journey is really important. People have got to believe in the change. They've got to understand why. Why are we doing this? And they want to know, how is it going to affect my team, my responsibilities? How's it going to affect what I do? Am I going to have to do something extra? So work to a plan if you can. Empower people through good communication. Helen talked about communication. Yes, I know some businesses I've been to actually have a communication change management plan. Have you seen those?
Yes.
Very impressive. Great, fantastic. What are we going to do with it? Brilliant. Just if you do have a communication management plan, brilliant, but it's got to be adaptable. It's got to change. Have those discussions with the teams. You know, leaders, they're the ones that have the vision, but have the discussion with the teams about, you know, is this working? Are we get feedback and then adapt and change it however you communicate, what you send out. It's really important. So it begins with the listening and the learning, doesn't it? It begins with asking, do we have the resources to be able to make this change? Have you as employees got the skill set to be able to make the change? And these are the fear trigger points that often people then, you know, that's where they worry and we don't pay attention to. And, you know, do they really understand why we're doing this? So that allows us to guide. And again, from that, our communication, what we're doing, we might need to make sure that we change, we update our communication, we send out regular updates. We might have to change completely. I've seen where we've changed the track. We think we're going down one way, and then with feedback from our employees or their concerns or all of that, we might have to change the way we're doing things. And again, leadership, you know, of course, that's key. That's the vision. I've seen too many people come in and they haven't actually set the vision. They haven't made change exciting as well. And that was one of my questions for later. I mean, actually change can be, you know, it's hugely beneficial for the organisation. Make it exciting, celebrate the highs and the lows. You know, there's going to be times where even the small things we can celebrate actually and bring people on that journey. And from a leader point of view, you might at that point, we're setting the vision, setting the expectations. We might have to change. We might have to change our track depending on what we get coming back from the feedback. So, and again, you know, don't ignore the resistance to change. Employees will come up with barriers. Of course they will. And that's where we have to work with them through, you know, managers with the vision through the managers, through the team about how we deal with when we've got barriers. How do we deal with it? And what we want to be able to do is get our employees from the asking the questions of what does it mean to me and my team to when they understand what the change is about, they expand and they get excited and they can see the benefits, what skills, what new things am I going to learn, what's the benefits. They start to ask questions like, how can I help? And when you see that, you do see that happen in a business when you see that people get it and they begin to ask, how can I help? What can I learn? Where can I be in this? And that's the key thing, the language that you hear. I'm conscious about time, so of course, you know, TUPE. We all know what TUPE is. I hear the word TUPE, and usually it's a horror. I've gone off, haven't I? I'm near the end. But you know, TUPE is also about service provision changes. So we all think of it as a sale of business, sale of assets, all of that. But it's also service provision change. So yes.
Just for those who might not be.
Oh, sorry, it's a transfer of undertaking protection of employment regulations. We call it, that's why we call it TUPE.
And
what that means is when you buy a business, 3 minutes, when you buy a business, we'll all buy a business perhaps from somewhere, or we'll maybe buy we'll take a project on, which is a small part, and we might take that part of the business. And if we take the assets as well, the key thing is all of the employees' terms and conditions transfer under the transfer regulations to our business.
A logistics contract, when someone wins a contract, drivers transfer over to the new company.
Exactly.
Otherwise, they're at danger of being made redundant.
And we can't make them redundant under the TUPE regulations. We take them all lock, stock and barrel, and we can't change their contract of employment, we can't change their term, we can't change their benefits. And that causes a big problem. But the one that people don't realise is the service provision change. So the classic example is if you have you're contracting out a cleaning service to another company, and that other company says, I don't want your cleaners, I want a different team. Potentially, all the cleaners that you employ could transfer over to another business. And that's all about change as well, and that's something we have to listen to. If we hear that happening, we have to think about those regulations. Again, employment terms and conditions, how do we vary them? They're really difficult under TUPE. You have all these exemptions called the economic, technical and organisational. It's called an ETO, reason for change, and it's quite complicated. But if we vary terms and conditions as part of our business, which you will do with change, you have to just make sure you have at least a minimum of 1 month consultation under the Employment Rights Act, and you have a proper full consultation. And that could be even minor variations in terms of job roles, job descriptions. And of course, neurodiversity, it's about, and Helen touched on it really well, it's about understanding how people need to hear the communication. Some people only want emails, some people only want face-to-face meetings, some people want WhatsApp messages or focus groups. So it's really, and that's where it's key in part of your communication and understanding in change, is understanding that there's different people with all various different varying needs, and how do you communicate with them. Anyway, that's it, I think. 1 minute. We, ActifHR, obviously we support businesses with HR and employment law, but the new thing that's just coming in on the 26th of October is the new rules on prevention of sexual harassment in the workplace. The difference about these rules, it's not dealing with it after the event. If you have a discrimination claim, we all have an obligation as a business now, wherever, to prevent it happening. So we have to do risk assessments, and we have to just understand, what I would say, do a quick risk assessment. Doesn't have to be complicated. If you find yourself in that situation with people going out, dealing with customers, third parties in the workplace, and the second is having an anti-harassment policy in place. And that should, and then actually train your staff, tell them about it, rather than just having it in a closet somewhere. Thank you very much.